Hello everyone and welcome to our Plenty Revolutions September 2017 series of audios or videos intended to further politely warn you strongly against voting this October 2017 in this country, but to instead join us in demanding an indigenously well-informed and well-organized national convention at which representatives from all of our major social groupings, well qualified and orderly selected, will assemble for weeks to boldly, openly and constructively present and debate all of the dangerously deep-seated and bloody problems and issues of this country, to collectively find lasting solutions, design new order of things in society, craft new working systems and corresponding institutions while legitimizing an interim arrangement excuse to replace the current illegitimate Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's government. Please access our many Plenty Revolutionary articles from different sites and locations on the internet, including https://webs.facebook.com/plaintruth2013 for more details and clarifications on these very key arguments of ours. Before enlisting to you the 5 audio or videos that constitute the second batch of our voice recorded messages to this Liberian public and the world over, with the first batch of 6 huge files spanning a combined total of 27 hours, which we published in March 2017 or March this year, and are currently at https://is.gd/is.gd/lowercases PMLV uppercase U0. And before announcing to you the title of this particular video that you are about to listen to, we'd like to inform and encourage you, first off, that because of our strong desire to see that these messages are clearly understood, or that these messages go through, and because of our deep awareness that we are on a revolutionary campaign and not a mere information dissemination move or a mere academic exercise, our titles, captions and topics are long enough where necessary for far above convention, since we vow not to sacrifice the clarity of these messages to mere convention or formality. So please bear with us in this direction, and rather concern yourselves more with understanding the main themes of these titles than the formality that they exhibit. Having said that, the 5 new videos that we have produced to inform and guide all of our activities, inclusive of how we keep pursuing or pushing our revolutionary case against LPRC, and then our friendly civic injunction against anything called casting ballot for a miracle Liberia, or casting ballot during this very harsh month of October 2017, just to prolong the sufferings and premature aging and early deaths of our fast downtrodden population, are as follows. Again, these are the videos that are to nudge you, to further encourage you, to even warn you that voting this October 2017 will be just another way of digging another 6 feet to dump us further as a people. So our 5 videos are entitled, number 1, Liberia's widespread criminal scams under the guise of carrying out infrastructural rehabilitation, a case study of LPRC from 2005 to 2017. Again, our video number 1 is entitled, you can Google out these videos by their name and you will get them. They are also in MP3 forms for those who will not have access to YouTube and other video reading sites. So number 1 again, Liberia's widespread criminal scams under the guise of carrying out infrastructural rehabilitation, a case study of LPRC from 2005 to 2017. 2. We dare the U.S. Embassy in Monrovia to respond to our well-documented claim that America is the biggest source of all of our problems, both individual and collective, in this country. Again, video number 2 is entitled, We Dare the U.S. Embassy in Monrovia to ever respond to our well-documented claim that America is the biggest source of all of our problems, individual and collective, in this country. Video number 3 is titled, Why do we, the Plaintree Revolution, talk the way we talk and act the way we act? Video number 4 is entitled, If God Allows an American Liberian Ellen Johnson Sirleaf to author and usher any peaceful, credible, and sustainable democratic transition, then he is mocked. And God forbid, our Almighty God is never mocked. So we're saying, in this video, we're saying, if God will allow people like Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in our group to ever author or usher or preside over any peaceful or credible process that will bring about any sustainable democratic transition, that what the people of this country are being fooled to accept, then God is mocked. And God forbid, he is never mocked. Video number 5 is entitled, the longest title, LPRC, EJS, meaning Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, GOL, and U.S. Embassy keep paying deaf ears to our legitimate demands, exposing the Carters to great danger and to the sad fate of the likes of Michael Allison, Harry Greaves, etc. But 1 inch of harm to any of us, family members or revolution members, will lead to catastrophic ethnic violence, which will drag into an ultimate third world war to be inflicted by God and us. That closes the reading out of those 5 of our 5 new videos. You will get them clearly again if we are ready to deal with them individually. And with this knowledge of yours about these 5 new audios or videos, we do now proudly welcome you to video or audio track number 1, which is again entitled LPRC, or Liberia's widespread criminal scams under the guise of carrying out infrastructural rehabilitation, a case study of LPRC from 2005 to 2017. We kickstart thus. We say, on October 13, 2005, again on October 13, 2005, the Erin Snow management team at LPRC entered into an urgent LPRC product storage terminal facility rehabilitation contract with a Lebanese firm called Mechanical Engineering Group, MEG, for $12 million United States dollars. This is according to TLC Africa. Note, this LPRC or this PSC facility is a 43,000 metric ton facility constructed in the 1960s with 14 product storage tanks, around 85 of which can no longer hold or store products anymore. A summary of the activities required by MEG under this urgent rehab project of 2005, which was signed, approved, done and dusted, which continue to remain the same, that means the scope of work, which continue to remain the same basic rehab goals of LPRC to this date in 2017 include, these are the basic activities. That is, one LPRC rehab project that started 2005 consists of 1. Extending storage facility from the existing but not fully utilized 43,000 metric tons to 75,000 metric tons. We will tell you later how many gallons, for example, constitute a single metric ton. So the first scope of work or the first activity is to extend storage capacity from the existing but not fully utilized 43,000 metric tons to 75,000 metric tons. 2. Replacing 14 meters and pumps. 3. Replacing corroded pipes and full upgrading the fire protection system, etc. Upon Elling's ascendancy to power on April 18, 2006, new LPRC MD Harry Greaves notified the MEG board that because of procedural and substantive deficiencies, the new management team at LPRC was going to nullify the deal, the existing $12 million deal. And so they went ahead and nullified, Mr. Greaves and his team went ahead and nullified this $12 million deal that was done and dusted during the administration of Erin Mervyn Snow. And don't forget that any of these international contracts carry with them huge financial burdens to be signed, to be done and dusted. According to Mr. Greaves, the MEG contractual terms were not favorable for the entity and for the country, claiming that provisions of the deal were inadequate, the deal lacked the necessary improvements and maintenance requirements, and that the contract was intent upon performing superficial patch works. These are reasons he gave. The Greaves management team then started its part of urgent LPRC PSC rehab project or process in October 2006. So from October 2005 to October 2006, another international tender process has begun, including the commissioning of some feasibility that they want approved by Mr. Greaves now, or engineered by Mr. Greaves. It included the commissioning of some feasibility studies as part of the process. In promoting this urgent LPRC PST rehab dream under Elling and Mr. Greaves, the LPRC management and board of directors embarked in 2008 on a long, expensive roadshow, which took the MD, the DMDs, board chairman, PR manager, and other top officials of the company to different locations, both at home and abroad, including the University of Liberia's main campus, the African Methodist Episcopal University's campus, and the Army headquarters in Monrovia, etc., and different states in the United States of America, including Minnesota, Maryland, Texas, among others, using hundreds and hundreds of thousands of United States dollars in the name of selling this urgent rehabilitation agenda. Subsequently, under Greaves, the final bidding process for this rehab project got concluded on February 19, 2009, and on May 1, 2009, LPRC entered into a $24.7 million deal with Zaken International Construction Limited after a long contract award process that exhausted over $1 million United States dollars. As usual, actual work was expected to begin in October 2009. That is, the contract was done and dusted May 1, 2009. Actual work was expected or scheduled to begin October 2009, just a few months. The Zaken contract award program took place at the Crystal Ocean View Hotel in Monrovia, a luxurious and elaborate program, and was attended by members of the American Liberian legislature, the executive, the press, and others. After Greaves had complained of being harassed by the ever-criminal American Liberian legislature for portion of this Zaken International contract money, as usual, that's what they do. And he refused, according to sources, and he refused with the legislature to fighting back by claiming malpractices in the deal on the part of Mr. Greaves. Elling set up an investigative panel headed by one Henry Reed Cooper to probe into the opposing parties' claims. Mr. Greaves' claim of being harassed by the legislature, the legislature's claim that Mr. Greaves has some foul play in the contract. So Henry Cooper and his commission went into probing these counterclaims. Though this committee, this Henry Cooper committee itself was caught soliciting bribes, according to a September 2009 Daily Observer newspaper report. Ellen just went ahead implementing this proven criminal committee's recommendations in favor of our legislature by firing Harry Grease and cancelling his management broker's $24.7 million planned rehabilitation contract that was due to physically commence just within a month's time. Ellen then chose Thomas Nelson Williams, to head LPRC on September 9, 2009 after firing Grease on the 7th of September. Right after assuming office, apparently at the directive of Ellen, T. Nelson Williams started the formalities for his part of urgent LPRC PSC rehab project, bid number 3. Accordingly, another round of expensive tender process began, and on October 22, 2010, Williams signed on with Motherwell Bridge Limited UK for the LPRC rehab project. Same scope of work, same minimum duration of 36 months. All of them have been scheduled for 36 months as that of Greaves, etc. But now with the full backing of the American Liberian Executive Mansion and Legislature. Although T. Nelson Williams claimed the contract cost US $22 million, Daily Observer newspaper quotes Mr. Greaves in November 2015 as saying that Motherwell had paid it in the tender process leading to this same contract for $25 million. While, according to one of LPRC's own board chairman, that is Councillor Nigbali Warner, who served the company at around the same time, but spoke to the press later on, meaning in February 2012. According to him, the contract, among other things, dubiously had no definite price. So they left the whole price area blank. And that way in the latter part of 2011, a year or more after the contract was officially signed, did the chief signer himself, Mr. Thomas Nelson Williams, ever take to his bosses at the level of the board of directors an instrument that he, Nelson Williams, called an amendment to the PSC contract, an amendment which criminally was signed between LPRC management and Motherwell Bridge Limited on the same date of the contract itself, that is October 22, 2010, according to which LPRC inter alia took on the sole responsibility for all tax obligations to be incurred by the Motherwell Bridge Limited, including duties, fees, and other charges ought to be paid to the Liberian government. Imagine that. 1 year on, after a contract had been signed, you got a new board chair. Remember, Professor Tappe, native Professor Tappe was chairing the board, but T. Nelson could not carry these kinds of work to him. So he waited for Nigbali Warner, thinking that it was another American Liberian numbskull, when this man is not a numbskull. So he carried this instrument now to Mr. Warner, thinking that it was a Warner and Williams kind of deal, and telling Mr. Warner, the board chair at the time, that this amendment, or through this amendment, LPRC was responsible to take on all tax obligations of the MBL, or Motherwell Bridge Limited, to the Liberian government. According to Mr. Harry Greaves, in this November 2005 Daily Observer newspaper article, although Motherwell had earlier bidded in 2009 during the time Zakem won at $41 million, but backed off during the 11th hour of the process because its banker, the Royal Bank of Scotland, had just posted a $20 billion loss. Then Deputy Minister of State, Mr. Maurice Etuma, stated that the reason for taking the contract from Zakem to give it to Motherwell was because Motherwell would do the job at a much cheaper cost. Let's explain this concept a little more, or this this process a little more. So after Mr. Greaves was fired, the contract was taken from Sakem International after millions have been spent in the tender process and the deal was done and dusted again. Mr. Morris Situma, then Secretary of or then Minister, Deputy Minister of State, told the press that the government decided to take this contract from Sakem International to give it to Motherwell because Motherwell would do the job at a much cheaper cost. Shorter than midway into the same contract, however, that is in 2015, after receiving up to $11 million, according to Mr. Greaves, Motherwell quitted, thus bringing the entire rehabilitation exercise again back to square one. So the third rehabilitation contract had then ended again. In February 2015, LPRC then posted another international competitive bidding invitation document, the fourth post-war rehab tender formalities in 10 years, with almost the same scope of work as that of the MEG contract of October 2005. Shortly after this February 2015 tender formality, as reported in the local dailies, T. Nelson Williams got changed. He too got fired, or changed. We'll say changed here because everything, it was just a click working. He got changed in favor of Mr. Smo Kupi in April 2015. Mr. Kupi now then began his part of tender process for the urgent rehabilitation of the LPRC PST's 1960s 43,000 metric ton facility, the fifth round of post-war rehab tender process for LPRC. Kupi's part of urgent LPRC expansion project was being disputed in April 2016 by New York-based Rex Remodeling Incorporated, which contended that LPRC had criminally awarded the rehab deal to Israeli Lutech Engineering and Project Management Consultant, or FZCJV, in violation of Part 5, Section 62.3 of the Public Procurement and Concessions Commissions Act of 2010. An allegation which LPRC was found guilty for by the Complaints, Appeals and Review Panel of the PPCC in April 2016. This is according to the New Dawn newspaper, April 12, 2016. LPRC reportedly took appeal against this PPCC ruling, which was upheld by the courts, according to sources. And after a long appeal process and apparent court, and court engagement of apparently paying bribes here and there, as is usual in American Liberia, LPRC got the go-ahead to sign this fifth post-war urgent PSC rehab deal in January 2017 at a claimed cost of $21 million, according to GNN Liberia. Note that in all these urgent rehab projects came from 2005 October to this 2017. The biggest way of presenting this criminal scheme has been under the title Contract for the Expansion and Rehabilitation of the LPRC Product Storage Terminal. That's Liberia. This too is Liberia. So from 2005 coming to 2017, this title Contract for the Expansion and Modernization of the LPRC Product Storage Terminal continues. We told you earlier, we're going to tell you what this whole metric of give you a rough idea of this metric ton issue. Let's please be reminded that around 200 or 325 gallons of mixed products is equal to 1 metric ton, or around 7 barrels of mixed product can give you 1 metric ton. So it's approximate. So LPRC for the 3,000 metric ton, more than 85% of which cannot store anything because it's obsolete, means far less storage of around 6,500 metric tons of products or around 2 million gallons, as the highest storage ever. This is the highest amount ever that LPRC can store based on the available data that we have. While right next to Ivory Coast, the smaller of the two oil refineries that there produces around 400,000 gallons of products per day. But let's give you the full reading. So we say, meanwhile, right next to in baby Ivory Coast, a country that has not discovered any trace of commercial oil yet, let alone to criminally auction out 10 to 14 precious oil blocks to foreign capitalists in rogue arrangements in the name of concession deals like crazy, stupid Liberia, there now exist two oil refineries. The first in bigger called SRR, or in French, Société Ivoirienne de Raffinage, which like LPRC started operations in the 1960s, to be specific August 1965, now owns over 100 storage tanks, 2 separate jetty lines, and a long list of operation facilities and assets, while LPRC has been failing in 12 round years now to rehabilitate and put 14 storage tanks into operations. SRR produces from direct refining operations, not story for business people, around 2,800,000 gallons of petroleum products per day, or around 8,500 metric tons per day. And as of 2005, Société Ivoirienne de Raffinage nets over $2 billion in profits after taxes are deducted per annum, while the country's junior refinery, in terms of age and production or productivity, the Abidjan Bitumen Refinery, or SNB, produces over 400,000 gallons, as we said earlier, of finished petroleum products per day. Imagine that. According to the BBC, as of 2005, La Côte d'Ivoire exports gasoline, diesel, and other petroleum products to over, we're talking about finished ones, produced at their own refinery of petroleum products, to over 15 countries in a sub-region and around the world, including France and the mighty United States of America. Petroleum products account for more than 13% of Ivory Coast's export earnings. Almost similar massive progress is being made all in a sub-region in terms of oil refining, with another young West African country, Ghana, coming up in these early 2000s with its Loon oil refinery, the Tema oil refinery, which in less than 10 years into operations now boasts of producing through direct refining process up to 48,000 barrels per day, or around 2,016,000 gallons per day. Algeria has 5 oil refineries, with the largest producing more than 14 million gallons per day. And Nigeria, as a further example, has 3 oil refineries, with the largest producing over 8 million gallons of products a day, etc. and etc. LPRC shamefully, meanwhile, is still criminally rehabilitating its 1960s 43,000 metric ton facility with 14 dilapidated storage tanks. And in the midst of all these criminal rehabilitation scams, LPRC still continues to do minimum storage of petroleum products for predominantly Lebanese merchants for fees of a few cents per gallon, miserably failing to live up to the balance 4 of its 5 statutory mandates of refining, producing, importing finished products for sale, and distributing or supplying. These are the reasons for which LPRC was set up. 5 goals, 5 operational areas LPRC was set up for in 1978, and even with some 1989 legislation to still give them power. So LPRC should be refining, producing, importing, storing, and supplying. But she now only miserably stores for predominantly foreign capitalists. As a result of this both shameful and sorrowful situation, LPRC is so-called 21st century state-owned commercial enterprise or state-owned business enterprise, SOEs, lies, my foot, contributes as its biggest ever to government's annual budget, amounts that never surpass between $1 million and $2 million, as its 7-digit numbers are anything for SOEs to ever feel proud of contributing to their national budgets in this day and age. Shame to Liberia. This wave of state-approved childish criminality going on at LPRC, a single segment of which comes in the form of these kinds of criminal rehabilitation or renovation or stuff like that, is just a tip of the iceberg of what's going on across entities in America, Liberia's Republic of Liberia, as we keep making a case for their colonial master, the U.S., through the American embassy here in Monrovia, that their colony, Liberia, conceived by American statesmen in 1816, to deport criminal blacks to Africa for them to Christianize and civilize black Africa, is a complete economic waste. So we're saying this statehood, this arrangement that was conceived by revered American forefathers in 1816 to come and Christianize and civilize black Africa is a complete economic waste. Liberia is an economic waste. We re-emphasize here, Liberia is a complete economic waste, despite all of its Harvard-trained administrators and economists and stuff in charge of things, and with their expert advice coming from World Bank and EU and IMF on a daily basis, Liberia remains a complete economic waste. So, to prove our point that the LPRC stupid criminal story, or this stupid criminal story from LPRC, is just an epitome of the bigger Liberian story, let's close up by throwing a little light on what's happening to at the Barbers International Airport, another American Liberian state-owned business enterprise. RRA is, or should be, one of the key revenue-generating institutions still left disgracefully unrehabilitated since the end of the country's civil conflict some 14 years ago. But sadly, this place has been a source of criminal self-enrichment by the American Liberians from historical times to date, probably because this is a 1940s makeshift, quick-impact U.S. military project purposely designed for World War II operations. And America is the biggest promoter and sustainer of American Liberia's criminality. So it will just continue to go that way. Nobody will do anything because it was set up by America. This airport, this airstrip was set up by America. And it is America that is promoting all of the criminal deals here on the part of the American Liberians. American Liberians are just a surrogate group of Americans here carrying on America's imperialism. That's just all. Nothing else can be attached to this story, because they are good criminals and they can carry on this kind of task with ease. This spate of criminal self-enrichment using RRA started from the very beginning of the airstrip's operations in the 1940s. Credible information has it that Pan American Airlines, or Pan Am, took over the running of this airstrip immediately upon its completion in the early 1940s and began sharing proceeds with successive American Liberian governments and elites up to the 1980s, when Pan Am divulged management responsibilities to the government of Liberia. The same source revealed that none of these shared proceeds or revenues from the American Liberian elites, or with the American Liberian elites, for this period of more than 4 decades could ever be traced on the government of Liberia's financial books. So all of the revenues that used to be collected by Pan Am from the 1940s at RRA coming to the 1980s, when she gave it to the Liberian government, finally, nobody can trace anything on Liberian financial books about where these monies went. This use of RRA as a means of criminal self-enrichment has been sustained and is currently being demonstrated by Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and her co-host This 21st Century as follows. So let's see how that business as usual continues. The National Chronicle newspaper, which is now the hard paper newspaper, investigated and published a scheme allegedly designed by American Liberia's executive mansion to pocket US $100 million of loan money that was to be offered by the president of Equatorial Guinea, Mr. Theodore Obiang Nguema, in 2013. The executive mansion tried to refute this story, but to prove them absolutely wrong, some of the major claims presented in this story, in this report, already started filtering in as true since then. This according to the National Chronicle newspaper, June 24, 2013. B or 2. In the name of rehabilitating the RIA runway, former airport MD and a number of business partners and the board chairman were indicted for stealing a combined sum of US $1,200,000 between 2012 and 2013, according to an August 2013 story in the People newspaper. When the indictment was released, the same government facilitated the escape of the prime suspect, Madam Ellen Cochran. Government announced it had issued an indictment against Ms. Cochran, but the suspect, addressing herself to these issues from her actual home in the United States, reportedly described government's claim of ever filing in an indictment or extradition suit against her as a mere scam as usual. This is according to Fabric FM, Radio LRB Online, Sky FM 2014. The C, or number 3. On January 15, 2014, the Microscope newspaper wrote that RIA, under another allegedly corrupt American Liberian called Richelieu Williams, was claiming to have, within 3 months, that is from April to June 2013, used $10 million United States dollars for work, materials, and services, mainly for the rehabilitation works at the airstrip. The paper claimed that the brother-in-law of the president and the Minister of State for Presidential Affairs, Dr. Edward McLean, had been the one instructing the Finance Ministry to disperse these funds to the RIA, a development which, as usual, suggests an executive mansion criminal project. Then 4, which is D. Ellen Cochran, explaining some of the embarrassments she had encountered while serving as airport MD under Madam Salif, told Sky FM's Just Another Day on July 25, 2014 again that USAID, or the U.S. Agency for International Development, gave the Liberian government US $3.4 million to rehabilitate the RIA runway. Delta, an American airline, gave the GOL $1 million for works to improve the airport, mainly for closing the numerous potholes on the runway. She, meaning Ms. Cochran, said Delta's decision to pull out of the country in 2014 was also hugely influenced by the level of inconveniences that their planes were facing with these countless potholes on old dull Liberia, foreign built and only airstrip in 195 years now. Then E, or number 5, lastly for now. According to the Liberian Senate, US $10 million was allocated in the 2013-2014 fiscal budget for revamping or rehabilitating the same airstrip RIA. But in a joint communication dated March 14, 2015 to the Senate Pro Tem, 3 senators complained that the Ministry of Transport had not been able to do any repair work on the airport, as the president was against sending a new request to the legislature for the approval of US $60 million financial package for RIA's rehabilitation, 95% or more of which will be gotten through loans for future generations to pay. That's the business here as usual. When the Senate invited the transport minister to come and speak to these issues, because Minister Angela Cassell-Bush had to also use this opportunity to defend the need for this new $60 million request from her boss, she appeared before the Senate so quickly, clarifying that some of the last year's budget's runway rehabilitation, $10 million, have been used instead by the RIA authorities to do such things as paying staff salaries, paying companies' debts, and doing other miscellaneous expenses or stuff, as she then strongly encouraged the Senate to ratify this new $60 million rehab deal, so that RRA can be rehabilitated again. This is according to Focus newspaper and Liberian Observer newspaper, all in March 2015. Note that these are some of the many reasons. We'll let you stop here. These are some of the many reasons, in addition to solid historical proofs that we do have, for which we keep emphasizing that a breed of people called American Liberians, or Congo, as we normally or usually refer to them here in general, and their institutions are useless economic wastes. And that's why we have always fearlessly declared that none of them, like in our case here, for their so-called LPRC, from their so-called LPRC type management, to their board members, to their very overall appointed sitting in their executive mansion, ever, I mean none of them ever, have any legal and moral authority over any native, like a ruling Kati, or any undiluted native in this country for that matter. Now what LPRC attempted doing to us on a fateful January 25, 2013. So these people have no legal authority, no moral authority over us, because from the stealing, criminality, all of these things are embedded into these people's DNAs. Where would their authority come from over any native? So it's time for us to take our country from them. These kinds of narratives pertaining to the criminally wasteful handling of scarce economic resources here by the American Liberian miscreants further substantiate some of our plain revolutionary claims that a structure called the government of Liberia is the worst enemy ever to the long-suffering masses of this land. Imagine the speed of criminal rehab projects that we just explained about, considering only 2 of the over 20 SOEs are in this country. Imagine what's happening at other SOEs. We dare any man with underwears on from LPRC or the entire government of Liberia to come and publicly refute any of our claims with their parts of counter evidence. And on the issue of the nasty bogus dismissal letter in our hands from LPRC, forced on us by them on January 25, 2013 as a result of our ever-growing or fast-growing consciousness about these kinds of criminal handling of economic resources here, we herewith dare any man from LPRC, especially those that were directly involved with the so-called dismissal event, whether or not you are still with the company, including the very Thomas Nelson Williams himself, under whose authoritative gather the action was taken, and Jackson F. Doe and Cornelius Miami, who did and signed the so-called dismissal document, to come and speak to the authenticity of both this dismissal document and the process itself. We also extend this challenge, this daring challenge, to all those predominantly criminals or criminal elements who call themselves board members at the time, but who do or say nothing to wash their hands of this mess at the time, with the proud exception of Mr. Manju Kamara, who proved to be positively different, as we remain grateful to him for life. Remember, we are statisticians, and we always, in every group, you must find some variance. So the team of 9 board members at LPRC, who did all statistical analysis, Manju Kamara became that positive variance in showing his level of objectivity. But these people normally don't survive in Liberian institutions. They are not given chance. And even though Reverend Dr. Herman Brown of the Episcopal Church, Ellen's choice as orator for the past 2017 so-called independence celebrations, as chairman of LPRC board at the time, kept writing all sorts of MESCO official letters on behalf of the remaining 8 board members. None of them, again with the proud exception of Mr. Kamara, ever tried to distance themselves from these kinds of embarrassing mess or to even show us some concern for what we were and continue to go through today at the hands of an entity that we have served for more than 10 years now up to the managerial level, all because we have started showing strong disagreements for the nasty way in which leadership and governance are being handled here by these known black American criminals calling themselves movers and shakers of our times or our society. To these claims from us, we again throw out the challenge to all the remaining board members at the time, all of which are living, or all of whom are living, and some of which may still be active on the board of the LPRC board to date, including Reverend Maya Buyo. He was on the board at the time, and we are sure he stayed there. Mrs. Ophelia Freeman, Mr. George Pavulu, Dr. Henry Topper, Attorney Tupi Taylor, and Miss Nora Rebecca Kido. All of you were on the board at the time. We challenge any of you to come to speak to any of what we are saying. We dare any of these people to ever come and speak to this ruling party versus LPRC issue, which happened under their authority. We also dare them to speak to any of the other issues we have stressed here about the economic wastefulness and criminality of the arrangement called Liberia and all of its institutions, including HGOL. Before closing, we'd like to let all of our citizens and all the world over to know here that even though this LPRC letter has been in our hands and we have been denied access to our own office, let alone access to our own legitimate salaries and benefits for the past 4+ years, almost 5 years now, while also being cruelly denied the opportunity to complete our dismissal process by the same LPRC, because it's a two-way street. If we can be denied all of these things, then let us go through our dismissal process, because dismissal does not end with one single letter or with a single letter. It's a process. She shamefully went to the press. The same LPRC shamefully went to the press, specifically the People newspaper of Wednesday, January 30, 2013. Again, Wednesday, January 30, 2013, and denied ever firing any ruling party before. So with all of what's happening, you deny the man access to work, you deny him access to his salaries and benefits, his due salaries and benefits, you still deny him an opportunity to complete his dismissal process and divorce from you totally. But then you go again to the press and deny ever firing anybody called ruling party before. This is according to the Wednesday, January 30, 2013 edition of the People newspaper. That's how terribly dangerous and complicated Liberia's governance problem is, ladies and gentlemen. We stop here for now, and thank you for following. For additional plain to revolutionary articles or revolution articles and videos related and unrelated to this track, please check out links at our Facebook fan page at https://facebook.com/2013, or go to YouTube. Please listen out in other videos for our full YouTube address, or better still, just Google out any of our articles by name. Thank you so much again for following.